Welcome to another tutorial by Lumen Looney. Today's design is a hook only design. Today's tutorial is going to be on my heart flower. This is one that I did with opaque bands. This is a full wrap bracelet. This one was done with red, orange, yellow, green, and blue. This was done with a 6-petal design and was done with pony beads on the end. I'm going to show you how to do that as a charm. This one was done also as a 6-petal design with the rainbowloom.com jelly bands with the pony beads on the end as a charm, with the purple, turquoise, yellow jelly bands. And this one is a Christmas themed one that I tried to do with the rainbowloom.com ocean mix bands as a charm. And this is the bracelet we're going to do today. This is the snowflake themed one for Christmas that I came up with. This is the 5-petal design, and it is a full wrap. This is the one that we are going to be doing today. But first I'm going to show you how to do the charm with the pony beads on the end. Supplies you will need is a hook. I am using a size F crochet hook. It works best for me. Pony beads. And your bands. I'm using light blue and white. If you don't want to do the pony beads, you don't have to use the pony beads on the ends of the petals. All you have to do is put a triple cap band, and you just simply put your band on and twist it 1, 2, 3 times, and that will work in place of your pony bead. But I'm going to show you today how to do the beaded one and the regular one. So to do the beaded one, you're going to take your bead, and you're always going to use double bands. And you're going to take 2 of your bands, and you're going to feed it through your bead like so. Then you're going to place both ends of those bands on your hook. And just a little tip, for me, I found that the opaque bands work best for this bracelet. They slide better on the hook. The jelly bands and the ocean bands twisted a lot and gave not quite as clean of a design, but you can use them. You just have to try to keep your bands a little less twisted. I'll try to get my camera a little bit better here. Okay, move my bands over here so I'm not reaching across the camera too much. Try. Okay, and then you're going to take 2 more of the same color, and you're going to pull it through both of those bands, like so. So you're going to have all 4 of those on there. Then you're going to take two more of your next color. I'm going to do the Christmas themed one. You can use as many colors as you want or whatever color combo you choose. I like to stick them on my finger because it's easier for me to pick them up. And you're going to slide the first two bands off of your hook. You're going to slide the second two colors through those two white bands and pick those up on your hook. And then slide those two white ones back on your hook, like so. So you'll have the two blue ones, the four blue ones, and the two whites. Then you're going to take two more of your blue, and you're going to slip those through the first two white, and put the other ends of the blue on there. So it should look something like this. So you're going to have 8 blues on your hook. Then you're going to go back to your white. Oh, I forgot to tell you, you will need your rainbow loom to use, or some kind of loom, only to use as a holder to hold your petals for when you go to put them together. So you're going to take two of your other color, mine is white, and you're going to slip those first 4 blue bands off of your hook, and you're going to slip those white bands through the first 2 blue only, like so. And then you're going to slip those other 2 white back on your hook. Then you're going to slip the next 2 blue bands back on your hook. Grab 2 more of your white bands and slip those through the next 2 blue and put the other 2 ends of those white bands back on your hook, and then slip those white bands back on. Those blue bands back on. So it should look something like this. You have the 2 blue, and then 2 white, 2 white, 2 white, 2 white, and 2 blue. So you should have 2, 4, 6, 8 white in the middle and 2 blue on the ends. Then you're going to go back to your blue, grab 2 blue, and you're using double bands the whole time. And you're going to slip off the first 2 blue bands and the first 2 white bands, like so. You're going to slip those 2 blue bands through the center 4 white bands, like so. And then put those other ends of those blue bands back on your hook. And then you're going to slip those white bands and those blue bands back on your hook. So then it should look something like this. So you should have 2 blue, 2 white, 2 blue, 2 blue, 2 white, and 2 blue. And then to finish off this petal, you're going to take 2 white, and you're going to pull it through all of the bands. And that's your first petal to your flower, or the first part of your snowflake. Then you're going to grab your rainbow loom and you're just going to sit it on to one of the pegs to hold it until you get the other 4 done, like so. Set that aside, and then we're just going to do the other 4 petals or parts of your snowflake, whichever you're making, the flower or the snowflake. Again, we're going to feed our bands through the ends. We're going to put our bands on both ends onto our hook, like so. Grabbing two more of those bands and pulling them through, like so. Then we're taking 2 of our blue bands, sliding the first 2 white off, pulling those blue ones through, second 2, sliding the first 2 white back on our hook, grabbing 2 more of our blue bands, sliding those through our first 2 white, like so. So you should have 4 blue bands on there. Then we're going back to our white. Sliding off the first 2 blue bands. Pulling the white through the first 2 on the last set of blue bands there. Putting the white back on our hook. Putting the second part of that first set of blue bands back on. And we're putting 2 more white bands through those blue bands. Putting the white back on our hook. Putting the blue back on. And this is what it should look like. Then we're going back to our blue. And we're going to take the first 2 blue and first 2 white off of our hook. And we're going to slide those blue through the center 2, 4 white bands. And then we're going to put our white and our blue bands back on our hook. And then we're going to finish it off with our white bands. pulling them through, all of them together, like so. And there's the second part of our snowflake. We're going to grab our rainbow loom. And we're going to place it on another peg until we get the other 3 done. Like so. And put that aside. Thread our bands through. Our pony bead. It's not wanting to cooperate. Put both ends of this band on our hook. Again, using double bands the whole time. I tried this with single bands and it was just very sloppy looking. Our 2 white. And through both of those. Grabbing our blue. Going through one side. Trying to keep them as untwisted as possible. Going through the other. Grabbing our white. Pulling off the first 2 blue. Pulling our white off into the first 2 blue on the second set of blue. Placing the first 2 blue from the second set, or should I say the next 2 blue from the second set on the hook. Pulling 2 of those white through that second set of blue. Placing your blue back on your hook. Grabbing 2 more blue. And pulling off the first set of blue and the first set of white. And we're pulling those blues through the middle 4 white bands. And then placing those white and blue bands that we pulled off back on our hook, like so. And then taking 2 whites and pulling them through all of the bands, like so, finishing off that petal or that portion of your snowflake. Grabbing your rainbow loom or whatever loom you're using and placing that petal onto your rainbow loom. Oops. Those first 2 didn't go on. Don't want to lose that. Let's try that again. And you can do 6 if you prefer. I prefer to do 5. If you do 6, It can look a bit bunched up, but I prefer, like I said, I prefer 5. If you're doing a charm, 6 is fine. If you do the bracelet, I find if you do 6, when you put the bracelet together, it looks a bit bunched up and it doesn't look as neat as if you do the 5 petals. But it's up to you, it's your preference. Again, we're threading those bands through our bead. Placing both ends of those bands onto our hook. Two more of our white bands. Pulling those through both of the whites. Taking 2 of the blue bands, pulling them through the second set of white. Putting the first set of white back on your hook. Pulling the blues through the first set of white, like so. Going back to the white. Taking the first 4 blue off, pulling the white through the first part of the second set of blue, like so. Putting the first 2, well, next 2 blues back on your hook. And pulling the whites through those blues. And putting those back on your hook, like so. And then you're taking 2 more blue, taking the first 4 bands off your hook, and pulling those blues through the next 4 bands on your hook. And sliding those bands that you took off back onto your hook like so. Should look something like this. You're taking your white, and you're sliding those bands all the way through that segment. Grabbing your rainbow loom or whatever loom you're using, and you're placing that segment on a peg to hold on to till you get the last part of your snowflake or your flower done. And you're taking your bands, threading them through your bead, putting both ends on, like so. taking 2 whites and putting them through both sides. Then you're grabbing your blue, again making sure you use double bands, pulling them through the second side of your white, sliding your white back on, and pulling the other 2 blue through that second side of white, like so. Then you're going back to your white, pulling off the first 4 bands, pulling that white through the next 2 bands, sliding the next 2 bands you have back onto your hook, sliding 2 more white through the next 2 blue bands, and then placing your blue back on your hook like so. And you're grabbing your blue bands, sliding off the first 4 bands, and putting those blues through the center 4 white bands. And placing the 4 bands that you took off your hook back onto your hook, like so. And pulling 2 white through those. Now, since this is your last segment, you're going to leave this on your hook. You're going to grab your rainbow loom that you have all of your other segments on, and you're going to pull those off of the pegs onto your hook like so. And you're just going to keep pulling them off of your rainbow loom onto your hook till you have all 5 on your hook, like so. Then you're going to take 2 of your white bands, and you're going to start sliding these off onto these 2 white bands, like so. Just keep sliding them off. Then you're going to place this part here back on your hook and slide them through this other end, making a slip knot, like so. What you're going to do is place this over one of your petals, or you can leave it loose to hang it on a bracelet as a charm. But there's your snowflake with the beads, like so. Now I'm going to show you how to make the full wrap bracelet. I'm going to show you just a portion on how to join them. Gonna show you how to join them. It takes it took 4 of them to make a full wrap for my wrist. You can adjust it to fit yours. And I do the tops a little bit different on the bracelet than I do for the charm. Okay. You're going to take 1 single band and you're going to do a triple cap. 1, 2, 3 on your hook. Like so. You're going to take 2 white bands, pull it through that triple cap band just like you did on your bead. Try to get this in focus a little bit better. Then you're going to take 2 more bands and pull those through that. Now, you're going to take your blue bands and slip them through the second 2 white. Oops, this slipped off. Slipped off again. Put the other 2 blue bands through first 2 white. We're basically doing the same thing we did with the charm, except instead of using a bead on the tip, we use triple cap band. Back to our white. Off those first 4. Pulling through those first 2 blue bands on the second set of blue. Pulling those white bands through that second half of that first set of blue. And putting that blue back on. And grabbing our blue bands. Taking off the first 4 bands and pulling those through our center 4 white bands. And again, we're taking our white bands and pulling those through all of the other bands. And placing them on our rainbow loom. I'm going to go off camera and do a few of these, and I'll be back to show you how you go about joining them. Okay, now we're going to show you how to join your flowers or your snowflakes to make your bracelet and how to finish it off. You're going to take your hook and insert it into the cap band at the end of your petal or your snowflake. And that's going to start the petal or the next segment, first segment of your next snowflake. And you're going to take your color, double bands of course, pull it through like so. 2 more white, pull it through like so. Oops. One of the bands slipped off. Pull it through like so. And you're just going to continue doing your petal like you did before. Pulling those blues through the second set of whites. And blues through the first set of whites. I'm getting my whites. Pulling off the first 4 bands, pulling them through the first blue set of blues and that second set of whites. And 2 more white bands and pulling them through. Oops, pulling them through. Second set of blues on that first set of whites. Like so. And then grabbing our blue, pulling off those first 4 bands, and pulling that blue through our center 4 white bands. Putting our whites and our blues back on that we took off. And then pulling our 2 whites through all of those bands. And then I've already done the other 4 segments for the snowflake. So we're just going to pull those off of our rainbow loom. Like so. Take our 2 white bands we did before and slide those off onto those 2 white bands like so. And then slip that in through, making that slip knot. And then slipping that over one of the petals or one of the segments of your snowflake. Like so. You may have to make 3 or 4 depending on your wrist size. And then you simply take your C-clip and connect it into those cap bands on the end of the segments. Like so. You may have to do it one band at a time. Sometimes I do because they don't want to cooperate. I find that the jumbo C-clips work better for this because there's so many bands. But I'm using a regular C-clip today. And the last band does not want to go in. There it goes. And that is your heart flower or snowflake bracelet. Thank you for joining me today with Lumen Looney. Also, I now have an Instagram, so follow me on Instagram at Lumen Looney. And give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel. Until next time, have a happy Thanksgiving.